Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Underrail Expedition. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you're chose to join me today as I ask Anastasia KHM about all the people around here. Colonel Cathcart, I ask, and she says, you better ask the soldiers that question because it's their lives that are in his hands. I have only good things to say about the Colonel, but ultimately, his decisions mean life or death to the troops, while I just treat the ones who weren't as unfortunate or, depending on the injuries suffered, as fortunate as those who were killed in action. However, recently I have been having more patience than usual. I don't know how good or bad that is in relation to the big picture. I am just a physician. I only care about saving lives, she says, even though she just basically defended the man who's responsible for the deaths that they suffer. Because he's the general, or rather, colonel, and sends the soldiers into fights. As far as I'm aware, anyway. Fraser? A sharp furrow chisels itself into her forehead. That is a word. She says, Staff Sergeant, the Staff Sergeant is always speaking well of me. All his supremacist nonsense. I have no idea how those two words connect, but y'all are pretty supremacist in the first place, all of yous. So it's interesting that he is somehow supposed to not be, or rather, it's supposed to be even more, maybe? I didn't get that impression. I thought they were all pretty, yeah, they want to control everything, and they have no respect for the people of South Underrail. Yeah. Then they also send me to deal with the traitors. That's the first mission that we deal with them. And they are gonna die. I mean, maybe they're not gonna die if I have anything to say about it, or maybe they will if I have something to say about it. But the thing is, that's the traitors. They're gonna die. That's where they're headed right now. Anyway, Anastasia says, "How I am a brave Northerner doctor, who, despite her disabilities, persevered and stayed in Fort Apogee to aid the cause. I dislike such people," says Anastasia. I imagine she's referring to the people who, despite their disabilities, stay here for the cause. Anyway, but I had to deal with them, I'm afraid. He's a rotten man, and sadly not the only one around. He despises all who aren't Northerners. He asks me why I socialize with Southerners, like Luka or Justin. He doesn't explicitly call them ratters. Oh, no, he does. That's what it means. Apparently, ratter is supposed to be a slur, which doesn't work. I mean, it does, but it's not an equivalent to real-life slurs that are built upon years of oppression and hate. That's how slurs become more than just insults. It's a reference to years of oppression and hate. And yeah, I somehow don't think that they have that here, considering that they're fairly new to South Underrail. So it's just anyway. He implies it. No, he says that it's always at the tip of his tongue. I suppose the two of us represent Protectorate in completely opposite ways, sadly. No, you represent the same. It's the same. It is. You were calling them barbarians. It's basically exactly the same thing. What is worse, calling them barbarians, an actual slur that has a real life history to it of discrimination, even though it's not, quite as common these days, but still it has a specific connotation. Or ratters that apparently are bad, that don't even connect. I would say that the slur that she used, it's not really quite, it's the insult that she used, is worse than the ratters. But anyway, so that's Fraser. Luka. Who's Luka? Oh, Luka's a very nice man, she says. Very charming. He's the head mechanic, a dreadnought expert. He is fascinated by those machines so much. We hang out all the time, and despite our different professions and different environments we grew up in, despite our different professions and the different environments we grew up in, we found that we have a lot in common. When we're having lunch in the mess hall, I assume, we take turns at talking about our jobs. We talk about machines, tools, his colleagues, not mine, whatever happens to be on his mind at the time, not mine. And after that, I talk about... Oh, right, they take turns. And I talk about my med stuff. I usually pick the grossest examples I can remember. He's very squeamish, so I often go into great detail. And in the end, and end it with enjoy your meal, she says. Yeah, you're all junk people, all of you. I think we both learned a lot about each other's professions and approaches to life. Interactions like that enrich a person. Yeah, they enrich them with knowledge that you're a jerk. That's what they do. Who does that? It's like, maybe as a prank once, but just to do it over and over again? Because that's the implication here, is that they do it over... She even used the word, I would talk about the stuff rather than I talk. Which I would talk about is like she's reminiscing about days past and about things that she used to do when she was a kid. It's not appropriate. I think it's a typo. Or not a typo, I guess, a mistranslation. But anyway, what about Kay's? He's got anterior cruciate ligament injury in his left knee, she says. I don't know why I said that. First, it's how my brain works. It is not. That is definitely not how it works. If it were, you would have said similar things in all of the other lines of answer that I asked you. How your brain works is saying KHM over and over again, but I am past that, otherwise it's bad. I suppose, she says, he works at the mess hall. Very kind man. He's a very kind man. He's a southerner, much like you, so I reckon you would have a lot of common subjects. But we don't. Common subjects? Interests, maybe? Subjects of conversation? That doesn't sound right either. The knee injury prevents him from being a soldier, but I think that's good for him. I have treated so many horrible injuries and have seen KHM. At least he doesn't have to worry about any of that happening to him. Well, not if I can help it, because I don't know what's going to happen to you all here, but we'll find out. What about the faceless? Probably KHM, because I don't know much about them. I mean, KHM. I've heard rumors. I would rather not comment. What a fascinating person. No, actually, you know what? Anastasia is less fascinating than this nurse. This is an honor to be a medical technician. Apparently, this nurse doesn't want to be a nurse anymore. It's all the gross stuff, you see. He wants to work with machines. So that's why he wants to be a medical technician instead. I have no idea what's going on there. I could guess at what is going on there, but it would be... How do I put this? Unkind to the writer. Even more unkind than I am being a lot of the time. It's mostly it definitely comes from a place of love. But we have Will over here and Luka. Let me guess. Will doesn't talk because I wasn't able to ask anybody about Will. So let's find out. No, Will does talk. You approach a man working on a console next to one of the dreadnoughts. The oil splotches on his overalls quickly yank your attention toward them. The more and more you stare, the more... Why do I stare so much? My God. The more separate and interesting shapes you manage to identify. There's a three-legged rat hound, a mushroom... Why am I reading this? My God. What you doing there, ma'am? He asks as he catches me looking at his crotch, apparently. The oil splotches on your overall form some truly interesting shapes, I'm gonna say. Look over here. I found Staff Sergeant Fraser on my bum. Somehow, some oil spilled on a chair, and I sat on it. Look at that beak. Apparently, Staff Sergeant Fraser has a beak. No, the narrator probably explained what that was. That's what I thought at first. Best plot ever. Hey, my name's Will, ma'am. Yeah, I have some questions for you, Will. I'm afraid I don't have much time to chat, ma'am. If you need me to do something, it's okay, but otherwise chatting means not working. Yeah, but the questions? Sorry, ma'am, no time to chat, lots of work. Although, my tummy is showing signs of emptiness. Nah, I'll eat later. Gotta finish this thing here. Well, he doesn't talk. He makes a fool of himself, and of me. Because I look at his crotch. I mean, beak. Whatever. So, I looked at his clothes. So, Luka. This rather portly man appears to be working on some complicated-looking mechanical part. All his mental capacity seems to be focused on it. As to him, you aren't there. That's sure. Probably comas needed over there. Granted, there is a lot of noise in the room, which makes it difficult to hear someone approach. And yours has been so far. Wait, my approach. You shouldn't say that because that approach is not the same as the. It's a verb, and not the noun. You shouldn't say it like that. And your approach has been met so far only with the backside of a worn shirt marked with burn marks, oil splotches, and a few torn spots. I'm not gonna look at them though. Excuse me. He twitches for an instant, dropping his screwdriver. He turns around, his face morphing from confusion into a smile.
Gee, you startled me, ma'am. I'm sorry, I was focused on repairing the right leg stabilizers and that I wasn't even aware someone was here. I was so focused that I wasn't even aware someone was here.
He's gonna say G every time. I'm not gonna say G. KHM I will say a lot, but anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you.
No need to apologize, ma'am. It's my fault, I forget myself sometimes. I gotta get this dreadnought up and running, so I'm all, well, let me introduce myself first. I'm Luka, the head mechanic. Are you, by any chance, here to purchase some, components, or are you, just getting to know yourself with the base?
I am definitely not doing that with the base. I don't get to know myself. I know myself very well. Luka, shut up. What is he even going on about? Let's see what he actually trades in, because I have a bunch of crap. And he might want some of this crap. A bunch of electronic parts. That's good news. We got ourselves a laser emitter over here that we probably are not going to need, because that is for a rifle. But I'm going to hang on to that. Well, that's, yeah, that's it. Oh, it's optical fiber, yeah. What does he have? Does he have good things? Galvanic foam, blast cloth. Blast cloth is potentially good. Ceramic plate, galvanic best. High efficiency energy converter. Not great, all things considered. But a little bit of money. I'll take that, thank you very much. So, what can you tell me about dreadnoughts?
Gee, if you give me a couple of days, I could tell you I could type you an encyclopedia, ma'am. But just look at one of them. So imposing, so powerful, hardcore, just hardcore. The official name is APF-99 Dreadnought, where APF stands for Armored Power Frame. Sure. These beasts are packing powerful 1 megawatt WP turbine engines, and their fusion cores can last for years without needing replacement. They're a very obvious mention of power armors in Fallout, but it's fine. Of course, the most dominating part about them is their weaponry. They pack the SBA-77 chain gun attached to one arm, a powerful 80 series drill on the other, and a 30mm rocket launcher sitting on their shoulders. 30mm? That's tiny rockets right there. Are there rockets like that? I mean, it can't be too big. But anyway, gee, some models even have a system installed, or had, I suppose, a system installed that allowed them to use smart rockets, but that has been out of use for several years. Smart rockets. Can I pilot one by any chance? No. Only trained pilots can use dreadnoughts. If I let you use one, I would be back on the rails, or worse. Why did you join the Protectorate? I haven't been asked that question in a long time. I don't know if you're familiar with the history of Core City, but I was living there when all the riots and death were at their peak. Those were some rough times. It was like a war on the streets. Everyone was dying as gangs ran amok. I had to get out of there. It got a bit better over the years, but some parts are still just falling apart. You've heard of Drop Zone? No? I lived there. Worst part of the city, burying the sewers, I would say. Then, 5 years ago, Protectorate moved in. The Protectorate moved in. I told myself nothing keeps me in Core City, and I can get protection and food here, and the Protectorate seemed like the good guys. Let's give it a shot. I thought I enlisted as a private, and soon enough I saw those machines. I was dominated. They wouldn't let me train to be a pilot, sadly, maybe because I was a southerner, I don't know. But I was good at fixing stuff. You can guess what happens next. There, that's the story.
The free drones?
Drones, I spit on those bloody pipe workers. They can zone out of Underrail and into the very bowels of the earth, bastards.
You really hate them, I see.
Do you think I shouldn't? They are like the plague. They oppose the unification. They cause chaos and take more lives than the bandits. No one talks about that, but our sources have confirmed that drones perform purges in small stations that won't join them. It's like if you're not with us, you're against us.
I'm pretty sure this is just projection, because that's what the Protectorate kind of does. Although because we haven't gotten any information about the drones doing that, but maybe they do. Maybe they do. Oliver. Huh? What was that supposed to mean?
I mean, like, in a sense that, I mean, all those diplomats are the same to me. I can't explain it. I mean, I support the unification and understand what it brings. United Stations, all good. But diplomats in general, too much talking, too little action. I don't know. He says, as somebody who fixes machines.
Cathcart?
He can get things done. I'm serious hardcore style. No, wait. I'm serious hardcore style. He sees things the way they are, and not all officers are like that, Corporal. A lot of them just sit in the office and just give orders from the safety of their nice chairs. Nice and comfy chairs. I think he wants one of those chairs. The Colonel is different. His chair sucks, is what he does. He knows you have to be prepared to do anything it takes to make it through and live to see another day. Dominating words, I have to admit, even though I just said, sort of complained about the drones basically doing the same thing. And he does all that without meaningless sacrifice and death. I guess that is different. Although, about the meaningless sacrifice and death, that's probably true. I think they are indeed, the Protectorate is basically like that. I'm not sure, though. I don't know if they send people out, like in expansion-focused raids and stuff like that. Fraser? Oh, he said something. Sorry. Colonel Cathcart. He said something about Colonel Cathcart. Perhaps he's the reason the Protectorate is still in South Underrail. With how much we are loved here, maybe another commander wouldn't have been able to cement our position like Colonel Cathcart did. Okay, now Fraser. Please, ma'am, don't get me started on that big-nosed rat-hound siphoner offspring. Is a hardcore pain in the rear, like accidentally sitting on a stalactite coated with in crawler venom. He hates the Southerners with burning passion. With a burning passion. People like me, Case, and if he hasn't treated you like an inferior, he will. Just give him time. Everyone hates him, ma'am. Northerners or not, because he's so stuck up and stupid, apparently. And, slackjaw. I wish I could tell him to zone out, at least. At least once, he says. I have no idea why you don't do that. I wish I could, but he's an officer. I'd be in trouble, but only once for calling me a ratter all these years.
What is going on? Only he calls you a ratter all these years? Because Anastasia said the opposite of that.
And that girly voice of his. He sounds like he was born without any... Corporal, I got carried away. You wanted to ask me something else, right?
Sure I would. Case? No, wait, that was Fraser, right?
Yes, where I apparently am saying Luka, Luka, Luka.
I don't know why. There's a weird interaction. I'm not sure what the intention behind that little dialogue there is, apart from saying that Luka doesn't like Fraser. Case?
It's not because he's a southerner like me, no, ma'am. And it's not because I wouldn't get my meal if it wasn't for him, no. I love that man because he is a hardcore person. Because, you see, we shared a common problem when we first came to Fort Apogee. We were southerners, and we're always under a microscope. We have to prove that we're worth a damn, and we stick together. We're stronger that way. So we gradually built a friendship, a good friendship, a dominating friendship. I just want to clarify one thing, ma'am. A large number of northerners don't care where you're from. Your personality and what you are able to do is what is important to them, just like any sane person. But some derailed idiots here still consider us inferior. You'll meet some soon enough if you haven't already. This is this is a terrible analogy. This is not an analogy. It's a terrible parallel for what is obviously being here depicted as a parallel for racism. It's terrible. It's just absolutely awful. This whole thing about being inferior. It's just that, like, I mean, it for sure. Obviously, the people from the north in the game here don't like the people from the south, and apparently the people from the south don't dislike the people from the north, which is how this is set up. But the analogy doesn't work because of what I said before about it being. It's a little bit because of what I said before about it being built upon years of oppression and stuff. If those years of oppression had existed over here, then it would make sense. Especially if, for example, Luka was actually aware that the unification is against the interests of the Southerners, because that would be another parallel to real life racism and many other things. There's so many ways that this could be a much better. There's so many ways where this comparison or this analogy is very wrong. Basically, what about Anastasia? She's great. I know her. She's not really. I know her well. We like talking to each other and hanging out at the mess hall during mealtime. She's very intelligent, but she's been through a lot. Makes her less intelligent, apparently? Her train was attacked several years ago by free drones. The bastards used chemical weapons, and it was a civilian train, mind you. Hardcore bastards. The doctor survived, obviously, but she was hurt really bad. And if you think that would stop her, you were wrong. She knew what she had to do, and here she is now, saving lives. I once heard one crippled soldier say that he thought that his life was over. He lost a leg, it's all over. He was zoned to the bone, but after he saw how Anastasia moved forward despite what happened to her, he realized the limb is just a limb, and things that matter. I'm not trying to minimize people who have damage to their voice, and, well, actually, in the case of Anastasia as well, damage to their skin, but that's... I would expect this story about all I'm saying is I would expect this story from the other way around. There's always a weird, and it can even be damaging, of just this sort of like overpraisal of people who lose limbs. It's usually with stuff like losing limbs and stuff, and then they're like, "Oh, you're such a hero," and yeah, it does require a lot of strength and a lot of strength, basically, to go on with your life after such a huge trauma. But it's so much more important to, in the case of a limb, in the case of a situation where losing a limb is what happens to you, it's so much more important to create accessibility in whatever environment you live in. In this station, for example, I don't know, if you lost a leg, then you would need things like, your bathrooms, or at least your showers, to be good for people who have only one leg or something like that, or maybe even get paralyzed. The stairs would have to have as well, accessibility. You need accessibility. That's what you need. You don't need to praise people. I mean, it's good that you praise people for being strong, because they are, for sure. But that, all I'm saying is that it's kind of dangerous to do that, because it might blind you to the things that you actually need to do in the first place. But here, I would expect this to be the opposite. Somebody whose voice was damaged from chemicals, which happens. It's a thing that happens, not just in context of war, but in with health stuff and accidents and stuff. But somebody whose voice was damaged, or maybe they actually lost their voice, and then they saw somebody lose a limb, and they'd be like, that gives me strength, because that's worse. Or maybe, I mean, we're comparing traumatizing, maiming things that happen, but still, it's kind of an interesting thing that somebody who lost a limb is like, you know what? That lady over there whose voice is now stereophonic and kind of sounds cool, probably. She's, if she can do it, I certainly can. I only lost a leg. It's fine. Anyway, he continues. Zone out, man. You only get one life. That's what he said. Paraphrased. That's not what paraphrasing means.
Paraphrasing means you're saying it in a different way. So that's not what he said. Let's see then. What did I, because I skipped a bit. The things that matter to you in life don't get blown away with it. Oh, right. Okay. So the Faceless? I like to mess around with their gear. I know they dwell in the deep caverns as far as I have heard, and they are the bad guys. But I'm interested in what they have. Their weapons, shields, and vehicles. Someone told me how they saw the giant tunnel... Because it has to be someone, otherwise it's some Faceless told him how they saw the giant tunneling machines, but I think it's someone. And immediately I thought of a cross between that and a dreadnought. Imagine that. Yeah, that would be probably impossible because it just would fall through the ground. Dreadnoughts themselves are pretty bad, are pretty difficult to create. There's a problem with how heavy they are and the size of where the size of where you know, that connects to the ground. I can't see a dreadnought going around right now. Yeah, there it is. You see those things over there? Imagine a thing like this weighing, I don't know, a ton? Probably a ton is yeah. So imagine you having a ton of weight, and it's probably more because when it starts walking, the up and down movements and stuff start making more energy, more upwards energy. But it's all grounded on a single one of those legs because the other one lifts up to walk, right? And that's the reason why tanks have so many wheels for one, but also the little tracks. They're not little, they're enormous, but the tracks in their wheels, so that they have more surface contact, so that they don't dig through the ground, because they will dig through the ground if it's the size of a not a tank, but it's even bigger than that. It's the size of the big diggers. They will just go right through the floor. Because those things weigh, I don't know, 100 tons, maybe? And putting that in however small the leg is, it's just going to dig through the floor. It's absolutely going to dig through the floor. And yes, that does mean that mechs from, like, Mech Warrior and stuff like that, and Japanese mech anime and stuff like that, those are all impossible. They are, unfortunately, impossible. And they're also impractical, but that's a different question. If something is impractical, it doesn't mean you can't make it. As long as it is possible, you can make it. Just look at the space shuttle. It's impractical, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Mechs, on the other hand, these are. They're even real. There's even stuff like that. But anyway, that's going to be that for today. I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Underrail Expedition. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and leave a comment. Like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.